So welcome everyone to day 3 of the 2023 State of the Medical Device True Quality Summit series. If you did not catch yesterday's session, you can access the recordings on the replay section of the website. We also plan on posting questions that we don't get to today in the MedTech Excellence community. So head on over to there after the session ends to connect with your peers and speakers on this topic and more. Today, we are going to be talking about the ROI on shifting mindset from compliance to quality. With us today, we have an all-star speaker lineup, starting with Daniel Powell. He is the CEO at Spark Biomedical. We have Jeff Schwegman, Vice President of Engineering at Recovery Force, Edwin Chung, Director of Engineering at SVK and Associates, and finally, Aaron Gifford, Principal Engineer at Nectar. So thank you all for joining. This session will run for 35 minutes with 10 minutes allotted for additional questions at the end. So if there are any questions that come up through the presentation, please go ahead and throw those in the Q&A section of the chat on the right on your panel so that we can get to as many as possible, and make sure you're putting in the Q&A and not the chat. And then, but feel free to chat among yourselves as well. And then to access the 2023 MedTech Industry Benchmark Report, visit the link that I just threw into the chat so you can get all of the statistics from there. So without further ado, we will start to just jump into some panel questions. So first question I have for you all are, what are the differences between compliance and quality in the medtech industry?
How about I'll go ahead and take that. So compliance, in short, is really requiring the manufacturers, suppliers to adhere to the applicable laws and regulations and standards. Whereas quality is really the mindset of determining how well your target market receives your devices and your product. And so there's a difference between the two in that one can be just looking at achieving the minimum of getting to market and staying on market. The other one can really be a mindset of achieving the best that you can be in order to, and really speaking to this ROI question of getting a product out on the market that the product wants to receive. And so relative to the ROI question, a product that the market wants would be more successful than one that just meets the minimum standards, so to speak.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anyone else want to add on to that? Everyone in agreement?
Yeah, I agree with Aaron completely. I think that's accurate. I'll also add that, in the marketplace, consumers, doctors, they don't come and say, oh man, this is a great company and a great product because they're compliant. They come because this is a great quality product that met my user needs. That's why quality is, I say, more important than just compliance.
Right. And a lot of times, if you truly focus on the correct intent, which is making a quality product that meets the user's needs, that's the doctors, the patients, the nurses, and everybody involved. In the end, in the long run, you've got something that's reliable and works. And in the end, it just sort of naturally meets the compliance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you all kind of started to touch on this, but to expand some on it more, is it dangerous to just focus on compliance and not quality?
Yeah, definitely. You're definitely missing the big picture, and you get into a myopic view of checking boxes versus doing the right thing.
Well said. Yeah, there are many companies I've been around and seen that have a lot of 483s, a lot of problems, just because their culture is not based on quality. Their culture is to, looking at quality as a bare minimum, or looking at quality as a burden or a cost. So they only have a quality department because they have to, and in the end, they don't make a quality product that comes out the door that really serves its purpose, that lasts a long time. They try to check boxes, and they don't really give their quality people the authority, and they don't have the quality culture. So not everybody buys into that. And if you look at, I could probably cite 2 or 3 big companies in the medical device world that do things that way. And if you look at their history of regulatory problems, it's long and and far. It's not pretty.
Yeah, the way I would put it is think about the most day-to-day activity you do, which is driving to work and driving home. What do you remember? The 100 times your car started or the one time it didn't?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
And so, that is really the same thing that comes into the compliance versus quality. The compliance might be like a metric of, 99%. And in today's world, that's really not good enough. So that might have been a compliance requirement, but not a quality requirement that your customer really expects. They really want that 99.99%. And so pushing towards that is really, what the world and their customers really want. Nobody wants their car to not start. So the same in the medical world, people really expect better. So, and this has to roll throughout the organization, which is really what the whole discussion top to bottom is about. It's not just on a manufacturing line. It goes from the user needs, which is part of the quality system, determining what those really are. And that gets a product that the person, the user actually wants, the patient actually needs. And then it rolls all the way through how it's designed, how it's built, how it's manufactured, how it's tracked. And all these things are holistically what the quality system needs to do. So compliance is just a part of that, but it's not holistically the entire thing. So if we focus on only compliance, it's not really the entire picture.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I'm going to use that. I'm going to write that down because that's a really good analogy to really put in a nutshell the difference between the two. So on that same trend, so how can shifting your mindset from compliance to quality help companies succeed in their businesses?
I'll throw out one way is when quality is a partner, and this is talking to the idea of a mindset, when quality is a partner to R&D, to the development process, and isn't a gateway or somebody who gets to say no and have power, but you're working together and going, okay, how do we do this together? Your products will get to market faster. You will have less engineering risk. You will have a more successful development cycle if that feels like a partnership and not. And I've been, obviously I speak from that because I've been there where I was in R&D and my enemy was quality, and they stopped everything. And then have a company now where our quality department just is practically part of the R&D team, and they're partners in everything they do. I have never seen one single argument within this company on it or one disagreement. And I sleep well at night as a CEO knowing my product doesn't have a bunch of gotchas in it.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I'm with a company who started not very long ago, but started with 4 people, and we're starting to grow, and we launched our first product last year and working on our second. And I came to this little startup company from a larger company because the founder actually started the ISO 13485 certification and the quality system before he ever even had to, right? When he used his very initial investment and used part of that for that. I knew then that he at least had a quality mindset. He understood that there's a need there for the medical device development, manufacturing, that you have to do this, and it's the right way to do it. And to try to get around and do the bare minimum and check boxes or take shortcuts was just not worth it. He had been around the block too many times where companies have tried to do that, and it's just not the right thing to do. And we actually have built into our quality statement, our mission statement, that we want to focus to the design, development, and the quality of our product, and with the intent that these products will be used on our loved ones and our family. And if you think about it that way, from the whole holistic, everybody in the company, that you do the right thing, design it the right way. The FDA and the regulations, they give you guidance on things that you should do as good practice. And you've got, checks and balances in place. But if you can do this with the approach of quality, number one, because your loved ones are going to use this device, especially if it's a life-saving device. if everybody in the company has that mindset and you build that culture and you build that from the top, and then like I think like Daniel said, there's no argument about, there's no product prevention team, there's no arguments about should I do this or should I do it. If it's always approached with quality is the focus, we'll do the right thing. If we have to test extra, let's get that done now, because it's a lot better to do it now and find the problems now than it is to find it later in the development process or find it later when it's actually launched into the field. The cost and the repercussions of recalls, everything else is so much worse if you find it later and you don't find it up front and early. That you build that from the beginning, and it's always a challenge to try to make sure, because everybody wants it faster. We want to save money, make more profit, get the launch done earlier, and it's always a battle. But if you keep the mindset of the culture of everyone in the company that you focus on the quality, let's do the right thing, even if it takes a little extra work and effort and time now, it'll pay off later. And if you haven't been through the whole process before and really paid the price later when you're fixing problems, especially if it's out in the field or if it causes an issue or an injury, if you haven't done that before, let's just say I'll never regret doing a little extra upfront early. Never have regretted that. And when we find something later.
Absolutely agree, Jeff. Great discussion there.
And I'm going to pull up a slide about, excuse me, that was from our industry report. So one of the things that we had asked was, how confident are you that your current quality system can handle your company's projected growth over the next 12 months? And we had 1 out of 3 respondents say that they are very confident and that they plan to upgrade their quality management processes. Question for you all is, what can this upgrade look like for companies that are wanting to upgrade their quality management processes?
I mean, the first thing, as Jeff was just saying, was about the philosophy, right? Get everyone on board, get everyone bought in, because your compliance check should not be adding months to your timeline, right? That should be measured in many days or a week or two to finish that off. The second thing is, if I can be a little specific, get out of Excel. Find some replacement for Excel for doing your business requirements and your compliance things. There are great solutions available that are going to make that a lot smoother and make everyone more confident that they'll be able to meet those needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
one thing I think we've tried to do, and we're it's obviously continuous improvement, and as you grow it, is really work hard with an intent to keep our quality system efficient, right? You don't really need 322 people signing everything, right? You keep the bureaucracy out of it as much as absolutely possible. I've seen so many quality systems grow into these monsters that you just can't work through, and delays everything, and it really is a burden. A quality system isn't supposed to be a burden, in my opinion. It's supposed to be a tool and an aid to help make sure you stay, you get all your documentation in place and everything's, it's your way you do your job in whatever department or whatever part of the company you're working with. It's this how you do your job. It's your SOPs for here's what you do and let's just do this. And we've updated ours so many times over the last couple of years as we've gotten more and more people, when we've gotten further along in the development, manufacturing, and product launch and product life cycle stuff. Because until you actually do it, right, you're guessing what the future should be and how you should do it. When you actually do it, if what you do is done well and your SOPs absolutely match what you do and the way you want to do it, then you're really not out of compliance ever, because they were tailored to do what you do, and instead of forcing everybody to do something a way it was done 30 years ago, and then you're constantly trying to make sure people are doing it the way your SOPs did it.
Yeah.
If they match.
I'm a fan of building upon what you have and then the continuous improvement, which I think what Jeff is alluding to.
Yes.
And the quality system starts off at an immature state when you first begin using it, and the company itself is typically a bit immature. And so as time goes by, these will both grow and need to sync up because at a high level, really what the quality system is saying is that you do what you say you do, and what you say you do is what you do, and they need to match. And whenever they're out of sync, that's where the continuous improvement needs to happen. And so the periodic reviews that need to take place on whatever schedule, typically quarterly or half a year, yearly, need to sync these up, and new processes need to be put in place or improved. And we find is that there's typically always something can be improved. In many cases, it can be simplified. In other cases, an entirely new process needs to be documented. So
yeah, we actually have an example that just happened last week, and today we had our ISO 1345 audit today while I was here. Actually, we have a great new quality manager who's been at our company about a year, and he's really looked at it this way, right? How do you make sure everything we're doing and our SOPs, they match? We're doing things we need to do, we want to do the right way. And as an example, we took a 38-page quality manual that had a lot of redundancies, right? So you have SOPs that fall under the quality manual that were redundant. There were a lot of information that was in both places. And he took our quality manual that was 38 pages and condensed it into 2 and summarized everything very nicely with diagrams and some short descriptions and pictures, and it pointed to everything else. And he just actually had that evaluated by the ISO auditor yesterday and today, and they loved it because it was so much simpler, less room for error, not constantly chasing documents that might not, correlate. And he's going through that process now, is simplifying things and making things more straightforward, and you wind up with a more efficient system.
Yeah, and I think you touch on a great point there when, we're talking about ROI, and a lot of times automatically we always think money, cost, but, time and talent is also an investment. So being able to cut down, using your resources to condense that quality manual to get that clear-cut alignment, I think that's a really good example of, how you get that by aligning with the quality mindset, not just the compliance. I want to jump into another statistic as well. So from our survey, quality and regulatory was cited as a top pain point in our survey. So to keep up with the regulatory environment and remain compliant, 55% of companies leverage in-house training programs and 36% use consultants. What do you four believe is the best way to train your employees about quality and regulatory topics? And in addition to that, are there any resources and examples that you've used in the past that have worked well for your teams?
Well, in-house training is what we use for our own SOPs. Anything we self-wrote, we self-train on. And in fact, we're doing that right now with some revised SOPs and also our own work instructions. So we have different levels of SOPs. And then, but more complicated or say very specific, esoteric, we might call it documents or specialized knowledge, we cannot self-train. We don't have the expertise to do that ourselves. So we will go and hire an expert, or we can do seminar training or whatever it takes. In some cases, like for instance, there's also ASQ or other organizations to go and get training from. You had one person go and take management training, for instance. These are all specific to whatever the person's training needs are.
Yeah, I think for us, about 80% of it is pretty baseline. It moves at the speed of a glacier for a lot of these topics. And then there's the hot topics, like we'll take cybersecurity. The FDA looks at cybersecurity like it's the boogeyman in the closet. They're scared to death of it. They're hypersensitive of it. And so for those hot button items, we bring in a consulting expert, somebody who's really up to speed on the latest thinking, the latest questions, how to be compliant, how to do all the appropriate testing and risk mitigation and all. So that'd be an example. But something like biocompatibility, it's pretty standardized in that we we keep up with ourselves.
Jeff, Edwin, any additional resources that you guys want to talk about?
We personally, we started out, we a lot of it's the same, right? So roughly 80% of it is the standard SOP stuff that we write, we train to, but for specialized systems and stuff, that the new standards and things that come out, you know, we have a quality system consultant, we have a regulatory consultant. We now have a quality manager who's really, really good. And so we don't really use the quality consultant as much, but we still do rely on the regulatory consultant. She, you know, especially when we're writing 510Ks, she writes them for us. She's the expert at it. She used to work at the FDA and did all the reviewing of the 510Ks. And she does that for a living, right? So she's on top of, as you just said, that, you know, the cybersecurity is a hot topic. We just submitted a 510K last year, and it was, I think I got 30 questions on cybersecurity alone, you know. So she's on top of that stuff, and that helps us stay on the cutting edge as much as possible, knowing what the FDA is doing in the regulatory side of things and any new standards that are out there that we may not have caught. They help us make sure that we're up to date on our training to standards. And then we're in the process of high trust certification as well. So we have a high trust consultant, you know, the experts. So it's generally if you have the expertise in house, use that. And depending on whether or not you want to hire the expertise for training or anything, you know, utilize consultants as needed is what our approach has been.
We try to use, we get those consultants in, we are consultants for those sort of things. And one of the things I recommend is implementing systems, software, automated things, right? Those can help a lot with maintaining adherence to the quality standards, right? Cybersecurity is a great one. Like Daniel was saying, everyone is up in arms about that. There are a lot of recalls related to cybersecurity and software quality issues lately. And there are definitely automated ways to monitor or check for those things in our product development.
Awesome. Yeah, those are all great examples. Thank you all for sharing. So, you know, we've talked a lot about, you know, why you should go this quality mindset versus just compliance. What, in your experiences, is the cost of poor quality? And this can be, you know, not just monetary. This can be across the board. When you think of cost, what happens if you have poor quality from your guys' experiences?
It's the most disruptive thing I've ever seen to a business to go on our warning letter. There is nothing more destructive to productivity. So I went under I left about 5 years into the warning letter, and as a product manager trying to get new products out, it stops. A warning letter stops every bit of progress, and you focus backwards for years. It's absolutely the most devastating thing to happen to a medical company. And that's not even like full-blown recalls and everything. That's just a warning letter.
My first medical device company experience was with multiple warning letters and then a corporate warning letter. I was just an engineer there per se, but it stopped everything. And it was for about a year. So it was horrible. So I have multiple horror stories about it today. We don't have time for here. But
That sounds awful, Aaron. And I'll add, like, how many people here had?
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you only one. So they mandated 40 hours of training for all personnel and 80 hours of training for all managers and above. Corporate wide. This is with what, 20,000, 30,000 employees or something? I think. You can look it up, but we'll move on from there.
Well, and these are the more extremes, right? And if we're not even talking about that, you know,
Yes.
if you talk
we're not
about
talking about the patient damage they had, which was
exactly.
patients having explants, you know, brain surgery to get their implants out. It was really bad.
And even if you have a low risk product, right? If you get a product out there that starts having a lot of complaints, and then you have to do something on a normal, there's no risk to the patient, no risk to the user. relatively minor. If you just even talk about the poor quality there, you know, in a low risk medical device, it's still a huge impact to your business and huge impact to the company's reputation and potentially future sales of other products and stuff. If you start to get the reputation that your products are not a good quality product, it's tough for the sales group to get it into the hospitals or into the users. And along with the fact that it's such a pain and you spend all your time trying to fix problems of a past product instead of developing new ones. Again, the intent is we want to make products that help the patients and help the doctors and the nurses and do good things, right, for patients and those users. And if you're fighting problems that you had because you didn't do your work up front and now you've got product problems in the field, your whole engineering or your whole sales staff is fighting fires that aren't progressing the company or not progressing new products that could help patients that you should be working on. And that's the minor ones, right? These guys are talking about the more significant ones where you got FDA stepping in with warning letters. Those are even worse. But everything in the end will come back to bite you, right? So, and it's so easy to want to push faster. I think I just saw a thing that I think Ford Bronco, they really rushed the product to the market faster because they had demand and they pushed it too early, and they're getting a whole bunch of recalls and a bunch of problems with certain models or something. And so they're spending millions because they launched it too early. I don't think it's hurting anybody, but it's just not working like it should, you know. So it's all bad in the end, and it's easy to take shortcuts, but the cost of poor quality is astronomical, and I think these guys all just had some serious examples of why.
And I'll also add that one of the things that Jeff is talking about, right, with reputation and fixing these past things, it hits you when your engineering staff, you start to have turnover, right? They don't like staying on Christmas doing paperwork for the product they did 3 years ago. And I'd say that, you know, that leads into a spiral that you just don't want to get into.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point that sometimes, you know, we think of the big patients are hurt or we get warning letters, but the turnover at a company can cost a lot. You know, and to touch on that, we just got a comment in the Q&A about they're wondering if some of you left those companies with all of those issues because it was hard to come to work. And I can speak from experience that does lead to your own quality of life at that job. So, you know, you guys aren't at those places anymore. Did that have an impact on you personally of going on to the next step in your career?
At the point in time, I attended as many surgeries to watch my product explanted as the ones I had seen implanted. I left. I hit my limit. It was rough.
I've seen other people do that. There was a ventilator company in New York where I was talking with somebody that left them for that kind of reason. It wasn't explants, but it was due to what is now under recall, for instance. And some people do what they call quiet quitting, which is they just give up while they stay and kind of don't really do work. It's a whole issue of a culture of apathy that gets endemic to an organization where people first off aren't listened to, and B, aren't, you know, their thoughts, if they're told, you know, to say the management, aren't heard or acted on. And these are all part of what it's not what a QMS is for. It's really what the quality organization will do. They're part of, holistically again, what an organization that is looking to improve will do, which is listen, you know, or kind of like a think, do, act. You know, it's, you know, it's bring in the best ideas of the people, then go and sort what they're going to do, and then go and do something about it. And so that's part of what continuous improvement is. And the quality system, you're not saying you're going to just do quality. It's really a method of, and just an encompassing way of saying we're going to essentially do Lean Six Sigma or some other, you know, I wouldn't want to call them buzzwords, but it's really a way of acting, of bringing forth continuous improvement ideas within the company. Well, whether you want to call it that or something else, they're all the same thing. It's taking the best ideas and doing something about it to go and improve the company, the product, time to market, quality to market. These are all part of the same umbrella.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, you guys have touched a lot about how, in a nutshell, compliance is doing the bare minimum to get through an audit or to get through the submission process, whatever that hurdle you're trying to get over, where quality is that mindset. Obviously, it's a lot easier said than done. But as leaders in your organizations, what advice do you have to our listeners on how they can start to implement this in their company, regardless of where they stand in a leadership position?
I think reaching back, I think it's the culture, it's the mindset, right? That's where it starts, and it has to start with everyone. It's not just quality department has to go and police everybody. And I've seen a lot of companies do that, and that's just everybody's fighting everybody. And starting from the quality mindset from the top, build your quality system to be efficient, so it's not such a burden to fight through every day. And then when you've got that culture and you started to develop products that get launched and are successful, I mean, it's hard to do. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it takes a lot out of everybody to make it all happen, to get through a launch. I always say it's roughly a medical device that's electromechanical, has software, whatever. It's generally a 2-year, $2 million thing, and it takes everybody was committed to make that happen the right way and get it launched. And then you've got the product life cycle management after that you have to handle. But it's rewarding when it's successful, and it's rewarding when you finally work through it all and you get it there the right way. And it's completely miserable if it comes back and you've got problems and now you're fighting those problems, So focusing on that, build it from the top, that mindset is the key. And then let all of those SOPs just match what you do every day. And then you're kind of always audit ready. You don't have to spend 2 weeks preparing for an audit, because you just do what you do, and you do what you say what you do. And it just, clean up some records to make sure you got everything in place. But you're ready to go. And it's just, they audit what you do every day, and you should be proud to show that.
And where I've seen, and this will harken back to, again, that experience I had, quality should be an enabler for a successful product, not to protect or stop the product from progressing as more of a no or a roadblock. And so when you're thinking about quality and you're like, oh, there's risk there, the next statement out should be, and this is how I think we can successfully mitigate it and work together and move forward, not just the stop sign. So I think if that mindset is we're in it together to make a great product and get it to the finish line, then I think your quality, your development all start to mesh and be partners, and you're going to have success. Exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, and to compound on that, as Daniel was saying earlier, like don't put the RA QA department on a different floor. I say that a little facetiously, but engineering, R&D, make them work with the RA QA people so that they understand, like, hey, we're not fighting each other, right? We're one team trying to get this resolved quickly, efficiently, perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. One team is the best. My background personally is engineering, and then some management, and and a combination of regulatory and QA. So, and in the mix of all of them, so I can see everybody's perspectives. And the thing is that the company has to get a product out the door, but at the same time, it has to be safe, and it has to work, and the market has to want to receive it. And all of these things, they're not necessarily all at odds with each other, but the issue is that there's this looming FDA and 1345 and all these requirements that say, well, there's all these, I must do all these other things too. And these all are kind of put these impediments of so many musts. And that's the whole scary sort of compliance side of it, that's already such a big hurdle. And then we start throwing out, well, now we need quality too. But quality isn't just what we're trying to say is really quality isn't just a state of just do this and we'll get there. Quality is really an encompassing sort of give the market what it wants and use a set of tools of continuous improvement, look at what the market needs, user needs, et cetera, integrate those into the design, development, build, manufacturing, and sales, and cycle that throughout your whole company, and then you'll end up with a successful product and a successful company, and that's where your ROI comes from. That's really the entire story.
Yep.
Awesome. So I think it's good to circle back of the difference between compliance and quality, because I think we can all say in our experience, those words are intermixed, but they shouldn't be. They're separate. Of a lot of times we hear people talking about quality when they're really talking about compliance. So I think it might be good to, go back to what is the difference, and from let's specifically look at from the regulatory perspective, what is compliance and what is quality in that sense?
Maybe I'll add also, one of the things that is being said here is that if you are focused on quality really well, compliance just, I don't want to say just happens, but it's very close to just happening, right? Because compliance is the minimum and quality is above it. So I encourage others to, maybe if people are confused about whether this is compliance or whether this is quality, I hope it's because your quality system is so good that you are accidentally finishing all of your compliance.
I kind of agree with that. Yeah, not to make it too simple, but I think you follow that direction, you'll be safe.
Yep, I think it's been well spoken, so I don't really need to add anything.
Perfect.
Hey, Brittany, I saw in the question, someone asked specifically the warning letters due to compliance or quality. The ones I refer to came out of an annual audit, and it was sort of both, and it was inappropriate or lack of responses to complaints and following up on complaints. So maybe we talked a lot about quality as an input, but also on the back side of it is responding to those field inputs and then being proactive. And that, sometimes requires changing the product, that sometimes requires a recall, that sometimes requires a CAPA, and just being proactive and not bearing that on the back end. That's what got our company.
Yeah, the ones I saw were, one group of them was substituting critical parts and implants without doing a full up retest of the devices. And one of them was a feed through, and it turns out the new feed throughs would crack when you put them in water, which is the critical function. And yeah, that was a major issue. And then throughout the rest of the company, multiple sites had almost the same exact issues with not fixing or following up on various NCEs and CAPAs in a timely manner, and was endemic throughout the company. So after they found the same issues at 3 different sites, it gave the entire company a corporate warning letter.
All of that sounds very painful. We've talked about a lot of the pains. What are some benefits in your experiences? Like, what things have you seen because you have a quality mindset and not just compliance? What positives have you seen in your companies?
Well,
Our
I can say
FDA
that
submission went really smooth from a straight up engineering standpoint. It was just like, yeah, done, no issues. It was great.
Well, we've worked on quite a few different projects, and the ones that did not, I guess, say out of the group of them, the ones that let's give the highs and lows. So the ones that did not follow what the customers and clients ultimately really wanted were not successful, and the ones that did by a more, top to bottom method of continuous improvement were much more successful. I looked at my list. I worked on 82 different projects now. So, and some were immensely successful, multi-billion, and others were just gone. So,
Well, I can tell you just from switching a little bit to more of a personnel point of view, we kind of brought it up a little bit before, but when you have a culture that's all in this together for the right reasons, right? So you've got that same mindset. You don't have that, I've got to go fight quality on this, or I've got to go push this through this issue, or I've got to go do this. If you've got everybody, driving toward the same goal and you're all on the same page, and you don't have the silos that get created in some companies. And I worked in some that, this group fighting against this group, and these two never agree. And it's you don't have any of those politics or any of that stuff in the way. And it makes your job more enjoyable because everybody's in it to make these things successful and get these things out to the patients and actually and help them, and I got one of the most satisfying things I had in a previous product launch as there's a life-saving drug delivery device. And I got some letters from a couple little girls who their lives were saved by this device. And we put lots of years of time and effort and commitment into making that product happen. And when you find out you helped save a kid's life, that was pretty rewarding. And our whole team, was able to share in that. And, normally it's a thankless job a lot of times where you don't ever see the end result. You hope it's there, supposed to be there. But when you actually get a letter in the mail that says, hey, you saved my daughter's life, or my other kid was at college and people were able to use this device on her because without any training, because it was so user friendly and so intuitive, and it saved her life. She would have died. That all that work you put in and try and making sure you fix all those problems up front and you try to make it the best product you can make it. All that work you do was rewarded at the end when you see those kinds of things.
I mean, that's why we do what we do in this industry, right?
Yeah.
Those stories. Awesome. I would love to hear, and we talked through advice that you would give. If you could tell one person that was coming to you and saying, mindset it's just not working at our company, what's one piece of advice that you would tell them on how to help that challenge?
Well, mine is essentially it starts from the top, but and that's the most important factor, but it's not the only one. It still has to rest with every individual. So everybody has their own role in this, and so even if not there, it still is your own responsibility. So you can take care of your own house, as so to speak. And so you can bring forth your own mindset, your own mannerisms, and that rubs off on those around you because everybody sees and notices what you're doing. I didn't believe that was true a few years back, but it got pointed out to me by a couple of people once I left a place that, hey, this place actually is different, and I had no idea, and it's 100% true. And I've actually seen the cultures of places change with the change of CEO. I changed 100%. And
yep.
I'll parrot that, what Aaron said, only I'll say it the reverse way of maybe consider, if you're a manager and you're going to your employees saying, hey, is this done by deadline, right? Is this done quickly? Is this done period? Maybe you're asking the wrong questions, right? You should be asking, is this done best? And you can sort of push it that way.
Yeah, best or even just correctly is probably my personal go-to right now. Correctly and in a time frame that's reasonable. and people usually just get it done. Our current discussion point where I'm working right now is getting what is the right deadline for training. So we have a training compliance is one issue that people have. 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days. How long should people be given for training? And then that's just kind of an anecdote in a way, but people tend to push off deadlines based on however long they think they have. And same way they push off, getting back to the car analogy earlier, how long do you need to wait for your oil change? Well,
Yeah, and I think this question is just, it's the same question could be asked of any aspect. If you're in a big bureaucracy, and how do you affect change? Whether it's quality system, whether it's management style, whether it's respecting your coworkers. I think the first answer there is just it's it. You gotta demonstrate it and make a change from your own position and show that, and then hope it works. I will not deny that big corporate America can be frustrating to get the right things done the right way.
Yeah, it's obviously easier to do when you have fewer number of people than if you have tens of thousands of people, because you got to have everybody, on board. But it's like a coach of a team. If you lead with the right mindset and make sure you recruit or hire people that believe in that as well, and then you do your best to keep that vision in place, and it's example by example. And I'm actually in a supplier of ours facility right now as we speak. I have an engineer who's downstairs on the floor programming a robot for our manufacturing process to try to get this new product launched. And he came to me yesterday and said, I think I need to start this program over again, but it's going to take more time. But if I do this, I showed feasibility by doing it that way before, but it's kind of a band-aided method or a piecemeal method. I don't think that's going to be robust for the future. And if anything gets wacky in the future in manufacturing, we're going to have to take a lot of time and a lot of effort to reprogram things. We don't want to have to do that. So I want to build this foundation. I want to build this architecture the right way, but it's going to take more time. And he was at a company where they would have said, obviously, no way, you don't have time. You got it functional, go, and we just had this conversation, yesterday afternoon or last evening. So let's do it right. The foundation is the key, just like you're building a house. I don't, it might be fine for now, but I know how manufacturing goes. I know how you're always going to run into problems that you can't foresee, and you're going to have to make things work. And if you build the foundation right, you still may run into problems, but fixing it or correcting it should be much more straightforward with a robust foundation and a robust system. So he's down there right now as we speak, building that program with a better architecture that's much more robust. And I think it's little tiny examples like that. If your whole company constantly has that approach with every department, all those little pieces give everybody in the company understands that value, that we all value doing it the right way. You still got to work on schedule, and you still got to launch the product and all of that. You got to run a business, but balance that with the primary focus of trying to make sure you do things the right way from the beginning. And in the end, it will pay off. It's not always easy to see from this point of view at this point in time, but down the road, it'll pay off.
Yeah, and that story shows the power of that top down of your engineer felt comfortable to come and say, I think we should take the time to fix it. So that's a great story. I appreciate all of you guys sharing your anecdotes. We are at time now, so thank you everybody for being here with us today, and a special thanks to Daniel, Jeff, Edwin, and Aaron for having such a great conversation today. I know we didn't get through all of the questions, so feel free and head over to the MedTech Excellence community, where you'll be able to ask more questions to the speakers as well as your peers here today. And then the link is in the chat also. I sent it again, where you can access your free copy of the 2023 MedTech Industry Benchmark Report. We will have the recording posted online by the end of the day today, so make sure to check in with us to watch any content that you may have missed. Again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you for everyone joining, and have a great rest of your day.